After nearly 7 years together, Casey and I, Emily, had built a life that most would envy. We shared a cozy apartment in Seattle, filled with plants we struggled to keep alive, and a collection of mismatched mugs from coffee shops we'd stumbled into over the years. Casey was my anchor, kind, loyal, always quick with a joke to lift my mood. But lately, something had shifted. Our connection was still there, sure, but the fire, that pulse-racing spark we'd had when we first met, felt like it had dimmed. Even our Saturday movie marathons and late-night walks, once filled with stolen kisses and inside jokes, felt familiar. Comfortable. Too comfortable. One chilly autumn evening, as the rain painted streaks on our living room window, I sat curled on the couch, scrolling absent-mindedly on my tablet. I wasn't sure what I was looking for, a recipe, a new show to binge? But somehow, I found myself reading an article about couples exploring gender expression together. The piece talked about how some partners tried crossdressing, not as a joke or dare, but as a genuine, curious, and tender way of seeing each other differently. The writer described how the experience opened new doors in their relationship, deepened trust, and brought back a sense of playfulness. At first, I chuckled. Casey? In a dress? The idea felt surreal. But the more I thought about it, the more I remembered tiny, almost forgotten moments. Like the time Casey playfully tried on my oversized sun hat at a farmer's market and twirled like a dork to make me laugh. Or when I'd catch him glancing, just for a second, at my silk scarves draped over our bedpost, as if lost in thought. I closed the article, but the idea lingered. The next day, as I stirred honey into my tea and watched the clouds roll over the city, I found myself daydreaming. What would Casey look like? More importantly, how would it feel? Not just for me, but for him? By the time Casey got home from work that evening, I'd made up my mind. I wasn't going to push. Just test the waters. Over takeout sushi, I casually asked, "Hey, have you ever thought about what it'd be like to wear something totally out of your norm? Like, really outside your comfort zone?" Casey raised a brow, smirking as he popped a piece of avocado roll into his mouth. What, like a clown costume? I laughed, shaking my head. No, I mean, like, switching things up. Gender expression-wise. His smirk faded a bit, curiosity sparking in his eyes. Where's this coming from? I shrugged, pretending to focus on my chopsticks. Just something I read. Some couples try it. It's supposed to bring a fun, new dynamic. I don't know. Silly idea, maybe. He didn't answer right away. But I caught him glancing at the floral scarf I'd left on the chair, the one he'd always said felt nice and soft. That night, as we got ready for bed, I noticed Casey hesitating before he took off his t-shirt, his gaze drifting to my nightgown hanging on the door. The next few days, I let it be, but I watched. Little things stood out now, the way he lingered by my vanity, the way his eyes softened when I wore certain fabrics. And so I planned. On Saturday, I surprised him with breakfast in bed, pancakes with whey. That afternoon, as the rain returned in soft drizzles against our windows, I rummaged through my closet. I picked out a simple, flowing tunic, soft leggings, and a light scarf, nothing flashy, just something that I thought might ease him into the experience gently. When the moment came, I guided him to sit at my vanity. My hands trembled slightly as I smoothed the scarf over his shoulders and brushed back his hair. There was a nervous energy between us, but also excitement, like we were about to open a door we'd always been curious about but never dared to unlock. I caught his eye in the mirror. You ready? He took a breath. Yeah, let's do this. As Casey sat at my vanity, I could feel the tension in the air. Not the bad kind, this was the charged kind, the kind that made your heart beat faster because you knew something was about to change. I started slow. I brushed out his hair gently, letting my fingers linger in the soft waves. I saw him watching me in the mirror, a mixture of amusement and curiosity flickering in his eyes. You've got great cheekbones, you know, I said, dabbing a bit of foundation on my fingers. Yeah, well, they've never been pointed out before, Casey replied, smirking but blushing a little too. I smiled and focused, applying makeup lightly, just enough to soften the lines, to bring out the gentleness in his face. A bit of mascara made his hazel eyes look larger, more open. The soft nude lipstick gave his lips a subtle, inviting warmth. When I was done, I tied the scarf around his neck and helped him into the tunic and leggings. It wasn't flashy. It wasn't over the top. But it was transformative in its own quiet way. And then came the moment. I turned the vanity chair so he faced the full-length mirror. For a second, Casey just stared. His mouth parted slightly in surprise, his eyes wide. I don't even recognize myself, he said in a hushed voice. Is that a bad thing? I asked gently. He shook his head slowly. No, it's just weird. But kind of nice. I could see the gears turning in his mind, processing what he saw, how he felt. And then, something remarkable happened. He stood up, adjusted the scarf, and turned side to side, checking himself out with growing curiosity. I never imagined I'd look like this, he said, a smile slowly creeping onto his face. The rest of the evening felt like stepping into a dream. We played around, giggling as Casey tried different poses, joking about being a model. I suggested we give this new version of him a name, just for fun, just for the night. After a thoughtful pause, he said, how about Kayla? The name suited him, soft, kind, playful. As Kayla, Casey's confidence blossomed in a way that took me by surprise. He didn't just wear the clothes, he owned them. The nervous energy from earlier melted into something joyful, free, and full of wonder. We spent hours talking, discovering parts of ourselves we hadn't shared before. Kayla spoke about feeling lighter, somehow, like there was no pressure to be the rock or the man of the house. I listened, my heart swelling with love and pride at his honesty. But that wasn't the twist. The twist came when I stepped away for a minute to grab us some tea. When I came back, I found Kayla standing by the window, the city lights casting a soft glow around her. Emily, she said quietly, without turning around. Yeah, I don't know what this means. But I feel more me right now than I have in a long time. The words hung in the air between us, delicate and powerful all at once. I crossed the room, wrapped my arms around her from behind, and whispered, then let's figure it out together. Kayla turned to face me, tears brimming in her eyes, but this time, they weren't from fear or confusion. They were from relief. The morning after our magical night felt different. The rain that had drummed against our windows for days had finally stopped, leaving behind a sky streaked with soft gold and pale blue. But the shift I felt wasn't just in the weather, it was between us. Kayla, woke up quietly beside me, her face soft and peaceful. I watched her for a long time, realizing how much I loved seeing this new side of the person I'd thought I knew so completely. When she finally opened her eyes, there was a flicker, the world beyond our walls. For the next week, we kept Kayla's new self just between us. A private world where we explored her style, tried new outfits, experimented with makeup techniques, and even browsed thrift stores together on quiet afternoons. But as beautiful as it was, I could tell Kayla felt torn. One evening, as we folded laundry together, she hesitated before saying, do you think people would hate me if they knew? My heart broke a little at the question. No, love. The people who matter will love you more for being honest. But we both knew it wouldn't be that simple. The twist. A friend at the door. The test came sooner than we expected. Kayla's childhood best friend, Josh, dropped by unexpectedly one Saturday afternoon. We hadn't seen him in months, and he always had a knack for showing up at the worst possible times. Kayla panicked. She was still dressed in a soft cardigan, a floral skirt, and leggings, her makeup subtle, but unmistakable if you looked close enough. I can change, just stall him, she whispered, heart racing. But before I could even move toward the door, Josh had let himself in with the spare key we kept for emergencies. Yo, Casey. Emily. I brought, his words froze as his eyes landed on Kayla. The silence was deafening. Kayla stood frozen, her cheeks flushing, her hands trembling slightly. Josh blinked. His mouth opened, then shut, then opened again. What's going on? A wave of courage. For a heartbeat, I thought Kayla would bolt, or try to lie, or fall apart. But she didn't. She took a shaky breath, squared her shoulders, and said softly, Josh, I'm still me. I'm still your friend. I'm just figuring out more about who I am. Josh stared at Kayla, with wide, confused eyes. Then something amazing happened. His expression softened. I don't get it. But, okay. If you're happy, that's what matters, right? Kayla's breath left her in a rush, tears springing to her eyes. She managed a small laugh. You're not mad. Josh grinned awkwardly. Mad? Nah. Surprised? Totally. But you're my brother, or, I guess, my sister? Or, look, we'll figure it out. We all laughed then, the tension melting like ice in the sun. A new chapter begins. That night, Kayla and I sat on the balcony, watching the city lights flicker to life. I thought I'd lose him, Kayla admitted, voice thick with emotion. But you didn't. And you won't lose me either. We've got this. Together. She smiled, leaning her head on my shoulder. Together, she echoed. The relief of Josh's support lifted Kayla's spirits in a way I hadn't seen before. For the first time since she'd first looked at herself in the mirror, she allowed herself to dream of what it might feel like to live openly, at least with the people who mattered most. But the next hurdle loomed large, her family. Kayla's parents were kind, generous people, but also traditional, set in their ways. The idea of sharing this side of herself with them filled her with dread. I could see it every time she glanced at her phone, her thumb hovering over their contact. The unexpected ally. It was Lena, Kayla's younger sister, who ended up changing everything. One afternoon, while Kayla and I were out browsing a vintage market, I felt my phone buzz. It was Lena. She and I had always gotten along, but we didn't text much. Hey, Emily, weird question. Is Casey okay? He seemed kind of distant lately. Just worried. I stared at the message, my heart thudding. I showed it to Kayla, who froze for a second, then said, I don't want to lie to her. So, trembling, Kayla typed out a reply. There's something I've been exploring about myself. It's hard to explain over text. Can we talk? Sister to sister. That evening, Lena came over. Kayla, dressed in jeans and a soft hoodie, sat beside me, hands clenched in her lap. When Lena arrived, she hugged us both, concern in her eyes. And then, with a courage that made me want to cry, Kayla told her everything. She spoke about the night it started, how it felt to see herself differently, the fear, the joy, the confusion. And Lena listened, really listened. When Kayla finished, Lena reached out and took her hand. I always knew you had the kindest soul. This doesn't change that. It just makes me love you more for trusting me with it. Kayla's breath hitched. You're not freaked out? Lena shook her head, eyes shining. Honestly? I think you're brave as hell. And I'm here for you. Always. The twist. The family dinner that changed everything. It was Lena who suggested it. Let's tell Mom and Dad together. I'll be there. You won't do this alone. So we planned. A small dinner at their parents' house. Nothing dramatic, just a quiet conversation over a meal. But when the night came, things didn't go as planned. Their parents could sense something was up the moment we walked in. The air was thick with unspoken tension. Halfway through dinner, before Kayla could even begin, her father, Mr. Unflinchingly Perceptive, put down his fork, looked directly at Kayla, and said, Son, or should I say daughter? I may not know exactly what's going on, but I see it in your eyes. You're trying to tell us something important. So tell us. The room went still. Kayla swallowed hard. I squeezed her hand under the table. I'm still me. But there's another part of me I've finally let myself see. I think of myself as Kayla. And I hope you can too. Her mother gasped softly, tears brimming. Her father's face was unreadable at first. Then, slowly, his expression softened. I don't understand at all, he said, voice thick. But I love you. And that's not changing. Not today. Not ever. Her mother nodded, reaching across the table to take Kayla's hand. A new beginning, but a new challenge ahead. That night, as we walked home, Kayla looked lighter than I'd ever seen her. But just as we turned onto our street, her phone buzzed. A message from her boss. Casey, I need to see you Monday. It's important. Kayla froze, dread returning. What if work doesn't go like this did? She whispered. I wrapped my arms around her. Monday came too soon. The whole weekend, Kayla had tried to enjoy the peaceful bubble we'd built, but that message from her boss kept intruding, like a storm cloud on the horizon. When we woke up that morning, I could see the worry etched on her face. "What if they fire me?" Kayla asked quietly as she buttoned up a loose shirt, choosing something neutral to try and ease the tension. I cupped her face in my hands. "Then it's their loss. But no matter what happens, you're not alone in this." She smiled, a small, grateful thing, but I knew her heart was pounding as she walked out the door. The meeting. Kayla arrived at the office early, hoping to avoid curious looks. But of course, Dylan, the office gossip, spotted her immediately. "Hey, Casey. New look or something?" He smirked, eyeing her soft hairstyle and more relaxed appearance. Kayla just gave a polite nod and kept walking. When she reached her boss's office, Mr. Henley, stern, old school, all about numbers, was waiting, arms crossed. "Sit down, Casey." Kayla sat, feeling the weight of the moment press down on her. "I've heard whispers," Mr. Henley began, choosing his words carefully. "About changes. About personal choices you're making. I need to know if this is going to affect your work here." Kayla swallowed, then lifted her chin. "I'm still the same person who's been meeting deadlines, managing projects, and helping this company succeed. If that's what matters, then no, it won't affect anything." There was a long pause. Mr. Henley tapped his pen on the desk, watching her. The unexpected champion. Just as Mr. Henley opened his mouth to respond, there was a knock on the door. It was Rena, the company's top client, a powerhouse in the tech world, visiting unexpectedly that day. "Sorry to interrupt," Rena said, stepping in. She paused when she saw Kayla. Her face lit up with recognition and warmth. "Casey. Or, is there another name you'd prefer?" she asked, her voice kind. Kayla blinked in surprise. "Kayla. Kayla. Beautiful name. I just wanted to say, your work on the last campaign was brilliant. And honestly, it's refreshing to see people in this office being real about who they are. We need more of that." She turned to Mr. Henley. "I hope you're supporting your people, Henley. Because I don't like working with companies that don't." Mr. Henley's face paled slightly. He straightened his tie and forced a smile. "Of course, Rena. We're all about inclusion here." Kayla nearly laughed at the sudden change in tone, but she kept it in. A choice that changed everything. After Rena left, Mr. Henley cleared his throat. "You've made your point clear, Kayla. Let's carry on as usual." When Kayla walked out of that office, she felt like she could breathe again. But that night, as we sat on the couch, she said something I hadn't expected. "I don't want to just survive at work, Em. I want to thrive somewhere that actually values me, not somewhere that only respects me because they have to." I took her hand. "Then let's figure out what comes next." Kayla smiled, a real, radiant smile, and I knew this was only the beginning of her next chapter. Then we face it. Together. That night, Kayla and I stayed up late, sitting cross-legged on the living room floor, tea mugs in hand. Outside, the city hummed quietly, but inside, our apartment felt like a safe haven where anything was possible. "I'm tired of pretending at work," Kayla admitted, stirring her tea absently. "I want to be somewhere I don't have to be two people at once." I reached across and squeezed her hand. "Then let's start fresh. What would you love to do if you could start over?" Kayla was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, "I've always loved design. You know that. I sketch ideas for websites, apps, logos all the time, but I never thought it could be more than a hobby. Why not make it your thing?" I urged. "You're incredible at it." The first bold step. The next day, Kayla dusted off her old sketchbooks, opened up her laptop, and started putting together a portfolio. She worked late into the night, fueled by excitement and maybe too much coffee. Within a week, she had a clean, beautiful website showcasing her designs. We sat together as she nervously hit submit on applications to small design firms and freelance platforms. "I feel like I'm holding my breath," she said, staring at the screen. I kissed her cheek. "Then get ready to exhale. You're going to amaze them." The twist, a life-changing message. 2 weeks passed. Kayla kept going to work at her old job, But with each passing day, it felt more like a waiting room than a workplace. Then, on a Wednesday afternoon, just as we were about to head out for groceries, Kayla's phone buzzed. Her eyes widened as she read the email. "It's Rena," she said, breathless. "The client from your office?" Kayla nodded. "She says she saw my portfolio somehow. She wants to talk about a position on her design team." The call that changed everything. That night, Kayla had a video call with Rena. I sat nearby, watching as my love lit up with passion, confidence, and joy as she spoke about her ideas, her vision, her style. When the call ended, Kayla turned to me stunned. She offered me a job. A real job. And she said they're building a team that values authenticity. She wants me to be part of that from the start. We sat there in shock for a moment, and then we laughed, cried, hugged. "This is it," Kayla said, her voice shaky with wonder. "This is the fresh start. The bond that grows stronger." That weekend, we celebrated with a quiet dinner on our balcony. The city stretched out below us, full of possibilities. "You believed in me before I did," Kayla said, raising her glass to me. "And I always will," I said, clinking my glass against hers. As the sun set, painting the sky in hues of gold and pink, we both knew this wasn't just a new chapter for Kayla. It was a new chapter for us. Kayla's first day at Rena's design firm felt like the start of a new life. I watched her that morning as she stood in front of the mirror, adjusting her soft blouse, smoothing down the tailored pants she'd chosen. Her hair was tucked back neatly, and her eyes sparkled with nervous excitement. "You look incredible," I said, stepping behind her, wrapping my arms around her waist. Kayla smiled at me in the reflection. "I feel like myself." And with that, she grabbed her bag, kissed me, and stepped into the world as Kayla for the first time at a job that truly saw her. A warm welcome and an unexpected challenge. From the moment she walked into Rena's sleek office space, Kayla felt the difference. People greeted her warmly, introductions flowed easily, and no one blinked at her name or her style. But no story goes smoothly forever. By midweek, Kayla was assigned a project that had everyone on edge. A major client, a stubborn, old-school company executive, had demanded a complete brand redesign, but they were notoriously difficult to please. "You sure you're ready for this so soon?" one of Kayla's new colleagues whispered. Kayla hesitated for only a second. "I am. I've got ideas." The twist, a client who tested her courage. The first client meeting arrived faster than Kayla expected. She presented her concepts clean, modern, full of thoughtful details that reflected the company's vision and values. But the executive, Mr. Cranston, leaned back in his chair, arms crossed. "This is nice, but it feels soft. We need bold, strong. And no offense, young lady, but do you really understand what that means?" Kayla felt the sting of his words, the unspoken judgment hanging between them. But instead of retreating, she met his gaze steadily. "I understand bold because I live it every day. Let me refine this. You'll get what you're asking for and more." The breakthrough. Kayla worked late that night. She sketched, refined, pushed herself harder than ever. By the next presentation, Mr. Cranston's frown melted into surprise and then grudging respect. This works. I didn't think you had it in you. But you do." Kayla simply smiled. "Told you. Coming home stronger." When Kayla walked through the door that night, exhausted but glowing, I pulled her into a hug. "You were amazing," I said, because I just knew, what she'd done that day. Kayla grinned. "I felt amazing. And I finally feel like I belong." The weeks that followed felt like a dream we didn't want to wake from. Kayla thrived at her new job. She was earning praise not just for her design talent, but for her leadership, her kindness, her spark. We fell into a rhythm, quiet breakfasts, late-night talks, long walks through the city, hand in hand. It felt like we'd finally found our life. But peace, as we'd learned, doesn't last forever. A knock that changed everything. One Saturday afternoon, as the rain misted over the skyline, there was a knock at our door. Kayla opened it and froze. There, drenched from the rain, stood Brandon, her childhood friend, her college roommate, The one person she drifted from when life grew complicated. Hey, Brandon said, shifting awkwardly. I hope it's okay. I found your address from Lena. I needed to see you. Kayla stepped aside, still stunned. The conversation they'd both avoided. We sat together in the living room, tension thick in the air. Brandon looked at Kayla, really looked at her, his eyes softening. I didn't understand at first, he admitted. When I heard, I thought, this isn't the Casey I knew. But seeing you now? I was wrong. This is you. I see it. And I'm sorry for not reaching out sooner. Kayla's eyes filled with tears. I thought you'd hate me. I could never hate you. I just needed to catch up to you, I guess. They talked for hours about the past, about the future, about how friendship can stretch and change and survive. The twist, an offer they didn't expect. As the afternoon faded into evening, Brandon hesitated, then said, I work with a nonprofit that helps LGBTQ youth kids who feel lost, who don't see a future for themselves. We're building a mentorship program. We need someone like you, Kayla. Someone real. Someone who's lived it. Kayla blinked in surprise. Me? I'm still figuring myself out. Brandon smiled. Exactly. That's what makes you perfect. A new choice, a new path. That night, as we curled up together, Kayla stared at the ceiling, deep in thought. I want to do it, she said at last. I want to give back. To help. I kissed her temple. Then, let's make it happen. And in that quiet moment, we both knew the next part of our journey was beginning, and it was bigger than just us. Kayla's first visit to the nonprofit felt like stepping into another world. The small building buzzed with energy, walls covered in artwork, posters with messages of hope, laughter spilling from rooms where kids met for group discussions and art therapy. Brandon introduced her to the team, who welcomed her with warmth and enthusiasm. But it was the teens, wide-eyed, wary, hopeful, who left the biggest mark on her heart. They asked questions she wasn't ready for. Were you scared? How did you know who you really were? Does it ever stop hurting when people don't understand? Kayla answered honestly, sharing her journey, the fear, the small victories, the strength she found in being seen. And as she spoke, something clicked inside her. I think I need this as much as they do, she told me that night, exhausted but glowing. The challenge within. But not everyone was ready to embrace Kayla. At the end of her second week, a volunteer coordinator, Erica, pulled Kayla aside. Some parents are asking questions, Erica said, her tone careful. They worry you're too new to this. That you might confuse the kids. Kayla's heart sank. I thought this was a safe place. It is. But even safe places have people who struggle with change. Kayla nodded, fighting the sting of rejection. That night, she told me everything, tears of frustration brimming. Maybe I shouldn't do this, she said. Maybe I'm not ready. But I shook my head, holding her hands tight. No, you're ready. You are what those kids need because you're walking the same road they are. The twist, the voice that changed everything. A week later, the group had a showcase night where teens could share poetry, art, music, anything that told their story. Kayla attended, nervous but hopeful. And that's when Jules, a shy teen who rarely spoke, stood up and read a poem. It ended with, I thought I was alone but then I saw her and I knew I could be brave too. Jules looked right at Kayla as they spoke the last lines. In that moment, Kayla realized this was why she was here. This was her place. Redefining home. Later that night, we walked home through the quiet streets, the city lights soft around us. I used to think home was our apartment, Kayla said. But it's not a place. It's moments like tonight. It's the people who see me for me. It's us. I smiled, my heart full. Then let's keep building it. Wherever we go. The weeks that followed the showcase were some of the most fulfilling of Kayla's life. She found purpose in mentoring, helping teens like Jules navigate their own journeys. Her confidence grew, her voice steadier. But just as we started settling into this new rhythm, Rena called with news that would shake everything up. The offer that changed everything. Kayla was in the kitchen, humming as she chopped vegetables when her phone buzzed. Hi, Rena. What's up? She answered cheerfully, putting me on speaker so I could hear too. Rena didn't waste time. Kayla, I've got an opportunity I want you to consider. We're opening a design hub in New York. A leadership position. I want you to run it. Full creative control. The team. The projects. The culture. I want your vision. Kayla's knife froze mid-chop. She stared at me wide-eyed. New York, she repeated. New York, Rena confirmed. Think about it. But don't think too long, we'll need someone there in 6 weeks. The tension between roots and dreams. After the call ended, silence filled the apartment. Finally, Kayla sank into a chair. New York. I mean, it's everything I ever wanted, isn't it? A chance to lead. To build. To be visible. I nodded, my heart pounding. It is. But it's far. And fast. And the kids, Kayla added quietly. Jules. The others. I'd be leaving them. And you'd have to leave everything too. We sat there for hours, turning over possibilities. Could we make a new home there? Could we leave behind this one? The twist, a letter that brought clarity. That night, as we debated pros and cons, there was a knock at the door. It was Lena, holding a sealed envelope. This came to my place by mistake, she said, handing it over. It was from Jules. Inside was a card with a simple message. Kayla, you taught me to be brave. Now it's your turn. Go where you need to go. We'll be okay. Because of you. Tears streamed down Kayla's cheeks as she read it. She's encouraged. Kayla looked at me, eyes shining with a mix of fear and hope. I want to go, she whispered. But only if we go together. I smiled through my tears. Then let's start packing. And just like that, the decision was made. Moving to New York felt like stepping off a ledge, thrilling, terrifying, and freeing all at once. The city was louder, faster, and more alive than we'd imagined. Kayla and I found a small apartment in Brooklyn with creaky floors, giant windows, and just enough charm to feel like home. The first few weeks were a whirlwind. Kayla dove into her new role, shaping the culture of the design hub from the ground up. She hired a team that reflected her values: creative, kind, inclusive. Every day, she came home exhausted but glowing, filled with ideas and stories. I picked up freelance work, explored the city, and supported Kayla in every way I could. We were building something together, and it felt like magic. The storm we didn't see coming. But even magic has its storms. 3 months in, cracks began to show. The pressure of leading the new team, managing clients, and meeting impossible deadlines started to wear on Kayla. She came home later and later, her eyes clouded with fatigue. Our quiet dinners became hurried bites between emails. Our late-night talks faded into silence as she collapsed into bed. One night, after a particularly grueling week, Kayla sat on the edge of the bed, head in her hands. I don't know if I can do this, she whispered. I thought this would make me happy, but I feel like I'm losing myself. My heart ached. I sat beside her, wrapped my arms around her, and said, then let's figure out how to get you back. The twist, a betrayal close to home. As if the stress wasn't enough, a new challenge emerged, one Kayla never saw coming. A senior designer she'd mentored, Maya, began undermining her. Quietly at first, missing deadlines, blaming Kayla for miscommunications, sowing doubt among the team. Kayla tried to address it directly, but Maya deflected, playing the part of the loyal employee in front of others. And then came the worst blow. Kayla discovered that Maya had pitched one of her original concepts to a client as if it were her own, and the client loved it. Kayla was devastated. I trusted her, she said to me that night, voice breaking. I thought she believed in what we were building. Finding strength again. But Kayla wasn't the same person she'd been a year ago. With my encouragement and the memory of Jules' words echoing in her heart, she stood up for herself. She documented everything, brought the evidence to Rena, and calmly, clearly laid out what had happened. Rena listened, then nodded. Thank you for bringing this to me. We'll handle it. And Kayla? Don't ever doubt that you deserve to be here. The bond that held through the storm. That night, as we curled up on the couch, watching the city lights flicker through the rain, Kayla sighed, a deep, relieved sigh. I almost forgot who I was, she said. I smiled, brushing her hair back. But you found your way back. And you always will. And as the storm outside passed, so did the storm within. After the storm with Maya, Kayla stepped back and took stock of everything. The betrayal had shaken her, but it hadn't broken her. If anything, it had reminded her why she took the job in the first place, not for the title, not for the paycheck, but for the chance to build something real. And so, she started fresh. Kayla gathered her team, addressed what had happened with honesty and grace, and laid out a new vision for the design hub. "This isn't about titles or egos," she said, her voice steady and clear. "It's about creating work we're proud of and a place where we all feel safe to be ourselves." The team rallied behind her. Slowly, trust began to rebuild. The twist, an invitation from the past. Just as the dust settled, a message arrived that threw Kayla off balance again. It was from Mr. Henley, her old boss. "Kayla, I've been following your success. I'd like to talk. There may be an opportunity back here for you. A leadership role. Different company culture. New management. I think you'd be a great fit." Kayla stared at the email in disbelief. "Why now?" she murmured. "Why him?" The temptation was there, closure, validation, maybe even a bit of poetic justice. But as we talked it over, Kayla's expression changed from confusion to clarity. "Kayla's choice. I don't need to go back to prove anything to anyone," she said at last. "I'm happy where I am. I'm doing work that matters. I've built a home here with you, with this team, with this city." And with that, she closed the email and never looked back. The new definition of success. That weekend, we celebrated, not with a fancy dinner or a big party, but with a quiet picnic in Central Park. We sat under a giant oak, watching the world go by. "Success isn't the job title, is it?" Kayla said, resting her head on my shoulder. "Nope," I said, smiling. "It's being true to yourself. And you've done that every step of the way." Kayla smiled, and in that moment, I saw the strongest, bravest, most beautiful version of her yet. Spring unfolded in New York with a softness that seemed to mirror the peace Kayla and I had finally found. The trees along our block bloomed with pale pink blossoms. The city, always busy, felt less overwhelming, more like home. We had settled into a rhythm. Kayla thrived in her work, and I had launched my own small business, designing spaces for community centers and nonprofits. Together, we found joy in the simple things: morning coffees at the corner cafe, long walks at dusk, cooking dinners while music played softly in the background. But, as always, life had a surprise waiting. The twist, an unexpected offer. One sunny afternoon, as Kayla and I strolled hand in hand through a neighborhood art fair, we were approached by an older woman with kind eyes. "Excuse me, are you Kayla and Emily?" We nodded, curious. "I'm Marian, from a media group that highlights voices making a difference in communities. We've heard about your work, both of you. We're producing a documentary series on modern love, courage, and identity. Would you consider sharing your story?" Kayla froze, glancing at me. "Us? On film?" Marian smiled. "Your journey could inspire so many. No pressure. Just think about it." The decision. That night, we sat on the fire escape, watching the city lights flicker below. "I'm scared," Kayla admitted. "What if people judge us? What if I say the wrong thing? But what if our story helps someone who's where you were? What if it gives them hope?" I said gently. Kayla was quiet for a long moment, then nodded. "Okay, let's do it. Together." The final twist, a letter from the past. As we prepared for filming, another surprise arrived, a letter from Jules, the teen from the mentorship program. "Kayla, I'm starting college this fall. Studying social work because of you. Thank you for showing me what courage looks like." Kayla held the letter to her heart, tears streaming down her face. "I thought I came here to build a career," she whispered. "But I came here to build a life." A new chapter begins. The documentary aired months later, and to our surprise, the response was overwhelming. Messages of support, gratitude, and connection poured in from around the world. Kayla and I realized then that our story wasn't just ours anymore. It belonged to everyone who needed to hear that love, truth, and courage can light the way even when the path is uncertain. And as we stood together on a rooftop, watching the sunrise over our city, we knew this wasn't the end. This was only the beginning.